especially when we're checking out different matchups. Ottomans are going to appear on the other side this time. No French, just a Civ that's been obsessed with them historically. Because Crackety is going to be pulling out the English. Interesting choice here. You know, considering what we just said about this map and how absurdly open it is, I'm a little bit surprised by the English pick. Don't get me wrong, there are situations in which the English player can be the tempo aggressor. You go very early, the Lombo rush. It's a classic. And I kind of see where Crackety's may be coming from, that this is a map the English can Lombo rush. It's so open. But at the same time, Linoco's chosen what I think is a good Civ for this matchup. You know, we just saw the Ottomans get thrashed. Why do you think it's a good Civ then, KP? Well, it's simple when you think about it. It's a free unit production. You're able to get Sipahi for free. And then you're able to match what the English are doing by going into, say, some archers to count the spears. And also, it's kind of a slow approach that the English take to the way they try to pressure the base, right? They get in fast, but then they slowly escalate as their reinforcements slowly arrive. Sipahi can pick apart those reinforcements. More so than that, as the game goes on, because you're playing it slowly, the Ottoman player can probably get more cheap units, or free units, rather. So he's able to escalate towards the threat factor more organically, I'd say, against these more static civs, like the English, like the Chinese, any civ that wants to play for a later timing. And shout out to Nookie D. I see you come through the raid. Hope you had a good stream. And thank you for following on through. But to me, what I want to see is whether Crackety is going to even try for the Lombo rush, or if he's going to try for like a Castle Age rush with multi-TC. Multi-TC is so much more difficult, though, and it has to be said that if you're trying to Castle Age rush for the English, typically you want to play onto the Deer. The Deer are really far forward here. This is actually pretty brutal, considering this is the second game in a row where Crackety's side has had this forward spawn Deer. I don't know what's going on in the generation code, and I hope that this is just a small sample group that's just showing the bias. But this is 2 games in a row the left side player has had a forward spawning Deer towards his opponent. Meanwhile, last time we had Lenok, he had a Deer stack here. Now it's even better for him on the east side, up on the hill. But either way, it seems like his are a lot safer than what I'm seeing on the west side. Well, let's open up with Lenok. We'll be going for the Minaret Madris. We already explained in the last game why this is just going to be the go-to choice. There is no neutral trade post. There is no justification for going in to trade instead as your landmark choice, the Ottomans. And I don't think that's going to manifest at any stage on this map, even if you want to, try and set up some different types of posts. But like the thing to keep in mind, by the way, is I do think there's a spot for the trade landmark for the Ottomans. It's a pretty interesting dynamic the way it works. Those who don't know, the alternative landmark you can get to this one, it allows you to garrison, I think it's up to 6 traders inside, which will generate, I want to say, 28 gold per minute, but I'm pretty sure I'm just referencing the cattle number for food from the Malians. It's around 28 gold per minute, I think, though. And at any stage, you can pull them out and have them go trade. And I think that's where Ottoman players will get really good at utilizing them. Is early game, they might be pressured, they'll store them, it's just gold. But let's say you get a minute or two further into the game and you have mid-map control, all of a sudden you'll see them make a run with the traders because that'll net them more gold. And that'll be the kind of interesting microplay we'll see that other civs can't do. Any other civ goes into trade, the trade either works or it doesn't. Like, you cannot sit them at home and they'll gather anything for you. The Ottomans have that unique factor to them that might make it viable in the future. But definitely on maps where there's no neutral trade post, the Minaret Madris is by far the superior choice. Lenok, hard on the stone. Hello. He's definitely going for the quick military school rushes. Wouldn't be surprised if he's considering a secondary TC fast follow-up, especially with the Deer stack to the right side. Very safe grab for him, especially when you're up against the English that maybe will be slow on the Lombo push. But I love this. Crackety instantly starts producing the Lombos. You need to be the tempo aggressor. You need to set the story for this series, right? If you just come into this game and you sit back and you think you're going to be able to Castle Age boom up, go Imperial, whatever have you, I think the Ottomans will hit a power point quicker than you because they'll be going into the military schools, which means they'll passively be producing units. On top of that, they can just as easily reach into multi-TCs. And the beautiful thing is they can even match the passive generation with cost-associated generation because of the Madris. They'll have so much additional food to work with. Of course, Crackety is going to pull that villager as well. It's interesting to think just how much small timer changes cripple and tweak the dynamics at play here. Like, TCs take longer to build, so it's a bit more risky to just do that blindly against the English. Then before that, of course, we had the outpost change, so the build-up for the English getting the attack speed aura is slower. Reason this is important, by the way, is at the early stage of your raid, when you're only like 5 to 6 longbows deep, this outpost taking 15 seconds longer to build is not just the attack speed being missing for an extra 15 seconds, it's your safe spot being removed for an extra 15 seconds. Think about the old outposts and how good longbow spammers would garrison the outpost if they got rushed by horsemen. Now you play a more risky gambly game if you blindly all-in on longbows. That's why more frequently we see English players go between 2 to 7 longbows and then they stop for a bit. And we might see that choice out of Crackety. For the moment, he continues to invest in the longbows, but I hope he does scout out the double military school. Otherwise, he's going to be in for a bad dose of pain here. In fact, it looks like Crackety... Yeah, you're not up against the roof. Chill, buddy. He has spotted out the double military school, so this should be where we see the adjustment with the racks being dropped. At least I hope we do. In fact, ooh, that would be pretty cool, actually. Crackety... So he's going to start walling this off, but I'd love to see him build a racks here alongside the outpost. Seems like he's not interested, though. Interesting choice to wall around this, though. I mean, Sipahi could torch you down. You get enough of them out, there's no way that outpost is going to survive. So kind of a nice adjustment. And, oh, I love this out of Crackety. So he's also going to build a gate, and then he'll be able to keep sidestepping in. So this is his answer to the Sipahi. Instead of building spears and diluting his investment into more military units, he wants to reach Longbow Clump. So he's just going to use these walled-off areas to retreat towards and then not have to go spears. And that means he can maximize aggression because his longbows, of course, can do this. They can snipe in on these villies. Seeing those villagers, quite a lot of them out here. Shiv's out. They've had enough of the longbows. You can see he's just going to keep frustrating. Good utilization of the scout on the high ground by Crackety as well. It's kind of unfortunate for Leenock that he didn't spot this or address it earlier on. In fact, he's still waiting on the first 2 Sipahi. Now, the good news for him is if he goes on the south side, there's not enough longbows here to deal with them. But if they get the palings down, that might change entirely. Yeah, we're seeing the adjustment out of Leenock now. I think he realizes the mistake he just made. He needed to get the stables beforehand. He was hoping passive generation would be good enough on its own, and you know, you're reaching that stage. You're starting to see why this Sipahi is so effective. I mean, it's so the reason why these are better than horsemen, by the way, like it's 2 ranged armor as it always would be, but the key detail here is for some bewildering reason, Sipahi get an extra 10 HP over horsemen, which is actually quite the buff. So the reason they get this, by the way, is when you look at the cost of them, they are slightly more pricey, right? You pay an extra 10 food, that's the justification. But then the kind of flip side argument is, well, yeah, they get an extra 10 health, that costs an extra 10 food, but this is also a unit that has an activatable ability that allows it to dumpster fights it's already winning, I think is the way to think about Fortitude. When you're already winning a fight, it allows you to chase down and do more damage to the retreaters. Another cool detail to think about with Sipahi is it allows you to more quickly take advantage of a lead from a misposition of your opponent. Like right now, you'll see Fortitude gets activated. Crackety can't even think about backing up. It's too late. Of course, this was always going to end this way, and there's a good pinch by Leenock there, enabled by the fact he went for the stables. But Longbows are going to move on the other side and at least find a little bit of a trade out. A lot of damage was done to this Sipahi, and overall Crackety can make this a decent exchange for him, and has to, in fact, considering he had to pay for all these units, and Leenock paid nothing for some of them. I like the way he's optimizing for the low health ones. But this is where I think Crackety has reached a whoopsie point. This is only a small chunk of his longbows, right? He's still got group after group. You can see the count up top. He's still going to have over 10 at the end of this. But because he didn't keep them all balled together, the Sipahi were able to find more value than they had any right getting. And so I think this is a good time to return to my point about why Fortitude is an incredibly useful ability more than people realize. Because I think I didn't do it justice in that fight. So what you have to think about here is Fortitude allows you to, based on good positioning, punish someone more. Because if you wrap around and they're in the wrong position and they try to react, it's a 50% increase in your attack speed. So what you have to think about it as, it's a 50% increased window of opportunity to punish mistakes. I think this is where we're going to see the Sipahi become kind of disgusting to watching competitive play. It's I'd say it's kind of like a mini Langsnecht effect, if you get what I'm saying. Where with Langsnecht, you know, if you make a mistake, if you walk into Langsnecht without the right composition, you get punished in less than 5 seconds. Like, done. Much quicker than if you run into Men-at-Arms mass, then you run into, like, you know, Horseman mass. The same logic here. Like, Horsemen compared to Sipahi are designed to punish players that aren't paying attention. I quite like it as well, because if there's something I've been kind of consistent in talking about, is that there needs to be more escalation. Although I was expecting that escalation to come more in the picture later on in the game, which Altman's of course have with things like the Great Bombards. But it's cool to see them kind of mixing in these double-edged sword elements earlier on, where, of course, the flip side for the Sipahi, and why you don't want to necessarily activate the Fortitude at all times, is that you will take increased damage as well from melee. Oh, by the way, I should highlight that's another reason why this is absurdly good as a counter, and why I'm not sure Crackety gets a win with this alone, is remember, the key detail, Fortitude, it's not 50% increased return damage from everything, it's only from melee. And that's why Crackety's now starting to mix in Spearmen. Problem is, at this stage, it's taken so long for you to do this. Leenock now has archers as well. Although Leenock doesn't seem to be paying attention with them. Sipahi are at least going to branch off to the side. Crackety would love to see him find a way to prep for, I don't want to say Castle Age, but some sort of scalability to what he's doing here right now. Like, right now, he's not exactly getting much out of this. I mean, you can look at the eco situation and be like, well, he's 4 villagers up. I mean, so far he's killed 5 of Leenock's villagers. How's that not good enough, KP? It's not good enough because you're on berries. Your opponent has superior berries. He's also still working with sheep. He has double passive production. You have to basically outright win every exchange or you're losing. And that's why I like that Crackety's trying to extract some value here, but the price is going to be high. Even if you kill these villagers, the time it's going to take you, you're going to lose the entire army. Archers are cutting off the reinforcing spears. Sipahi are going to overwhelm. Yes, you do chip away at the villager count of Leenock again, but this time it's going to cost you the main army. And after this, I do believe Leenock is going to be coming across the map to return the favor. Yeah, so I will say Crackety made the best of a bad situation. Like, I think these longbows have become a burden on him that weren't going to serve any purpose anymore. The problem with losing all of them like this is now you're open. Like, you're just a 2-year-old's crayon book. It's easy for everyone to see and read. Sipahi, you can read it and weep. Because you've just got no walling going on here. You've got no layer of protection. You've just started setting up farms far enough away from your TC. And I mean, I gotta ask why on this one as well. Like, Crackety could have easily set up the farms here. Maybe sacrifice one of the houses or whatnot. Instead, he set them far enough out that Sipahi can wrap around. Now Sipahi are going to wrap towards the gold. They will pull back. Archers aren't quite in range yet. Now, the issue of what's happening here is even if Crackety now holds, yes, he's built a big eco lead, but he's forced to kind of double down on military to match Leenock. And Leenock behind this could easily think about going for another TC to now recover the deficit he's at. God, I'm getting sick of panoramic. Just realized that. So I'm kind of thinking like what the win condition is now for these two sides. I think Crackety needs to tech up. He's slowly falling behind in this matchup because of the Sipahi numbers, and no amount of Spearman is going to fix that, just because Sipahi can choose where they fight and the Spearman can't. The problem I do think he's going to be facing here is, yeah, Leenock is on his way up. Seems like we've got a little bit of a whoopsie-daisy bug here, as we can't see the tech up underway. Wait, oh no, that's right, they changed it here. I forgot. And we are going Imperial Armory. Okay, so this is a really big deal, actually, because Crackety's become more reliant on the Lombos than he even was before, because he needs to keep his opponent out of his base with them. But now Leenock's going to be able to build a Mangonel. And once that first Mangonel comes out, Crackety has no answer to it. And this comes back to what I said about Crackety's solution has to be finding Castle Age. I just don't know if he can find it quick enough here. I mean, the good news for Crackety fans, he has stopped using the food right now. So he's just gathering it. And if he rushes onto the gold, he could easily catch up here. But make no mistake about it, folks. By the time he techs up, first Mangonel is going to be in the field. And that one Mangonel will plow forward. It will block him out of one stack of farms and will also prevent his Lombos from taking any fights. So I think Kraken needs to prep the stables now just in case he needs to get something ahead of time. Instead, though, he's going for more racks and getting a very bad feeling that he might be doubling down on Feudal Age when he needs to be going Castle. We'll see if it works out. In theory, if Kraken can hit the timing perfectly, this could work. My only concern is Siege Engineering hasn't been pumped yet, hasn't even got the gold for it. And then there's the wood factory he needs to worry about. While producing Spearmen and Lombos, you need to also find wood for Rams. It's the only way you're getting into this base. Meanwhile, behind this, more military scores now coming out from Leenock. About to go up to 4. Also pumping out the metas. Notice that he's not going to waste his time going for some overly premium type units here, like the men-at-arms or the crossbows. Of course, he can't get his hands on the knights until he gets Advanced Academy. I like that balancing choice as well. I think 3 knights would just be a little bit absurd on this Civ without some sort of gate. And Crackety has fully backed up. I like that he's done this. I think you have to accept that you're just an age behind, and if you try to go for a fight now, you lose, and you lose the game. This does give him a recovery point. The good news for Crackety as well is once he cracks that Castle Age, that's going to be an additional TC, so that will boost his eco lead. And this is very ambitious. Crackety has just essentially stamped for approval the requirement forms to build the Great Wall of China, or at least the equivocal here. Especially when he gives the job to just 1 or 2 villages. Bushy's coming in. Leenock needs to show some respect, though. Hasn't diversified his comp yet. It's still only Sipahi. Mangonels are taking a while. I think Leenock knows fully well what Crackety is up to here. It will be the build-up with the King's Pass now. Looks like the wall should at least be complete. However, if Leenock does wrap north, he could stop these from going up. But I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't been like scouting on the flanks here. If we look at Leenock's vision, he doesn't see a damn thing. Instead, he's focused on reclaiming home. It's kind of tough to watch Crackety attempt this like Lombo rush in, and which I think was a good idea, by the way, against what the Ottomans do. And then just essentially, even when you try to do this in the English, you usually just find yourself falling back to the same plan of going Castle Imp. This is now reaching a point where his win condition is Imp. Castle Age is very difficult, I think, for Crackety to win. And it comes down to the issue that you're now, 6 foot deep in Lombo Spearman comp. So it's very difficult for you to transition to something to counter Mangonels. You can think about going Men-at-Arms, which is not great against Mangonels, like at least not countering them out directly. You could think about going for a keep drop, then get Network Citadels plus a Mangonel or a Springald. That could be a recovery point. But that's 800 stone. You need 800 stone there, or you need to invest 300 wood. Then we're talking about the cost of Springals as well. English eco can be strong as the game goes on, but it's not there yet. It's only at 60, and he is still at a point where he needs to keep investing in the military. I think that's maybe one of the biggest strengths of the Ottomans, is because of this passive generation they get going in the mid-game. Almost any Civ they're up against feels that threat that they need to keep investing resources into military. And while you're investing in military, the Ottoman player could be doing whatever he wants. He could be investing in eco, he could be investing in research, he could be doubling down on the military element. And you're just seeing the impact of that. Just look at the numbers now. Like, Crackety, of course, did lose a sizable army, yes. But if you look at even the destroyed value and then the army value comparative, you can see how far ahead Leenock is, despite the fact that Crackety pounced first and took out several of Leenock's villages. I say several, he took out 11 in total. Yet when you look at the army value differential, they were getting close to being doubled up, right? There's almost double the value in the Ottoman army. And the destroyed value was only 1,000 difference. This is the power of the passive generation. All those freebies really add up, and they have added up now. The Men-at-Arms coming out. Mangonels should push Crackety away, and this is the detail I was worried about. Now, Crackety, to his credit, has prepped a lot of Men-at-Arms. The problem, however, is they're still going to be stuck down in the melee mosh pit. Sipahi baiting a fight here. Leenock needs to go for the premium mango shot. He's going to back off, leave the Men-at-Arms at the front side. Lombos will start to step away. Sipahi now wrapping around. Frontline is holding for the moment for Leenock. These men-at-arms are tanky enough to slow things down. Mango about to be exposed, though. Mistakes have definitely been made there. Lee is going to lose the siege weapon. Should not be losing that way. But in exchange, he's going to just clash with the backline and at least get a good exchange here. In fact, looking at the count as it's going, considering how much of this is free for Leenock and how much Crackety had to pay for, this is going to set him very far back. Crackety now losing all spears, all lombos, and only a clunky men-at-arms army to work with. Good hold, at least from Crackety, but he's still going to pay a price regardless. It was always the way this fight was going to go. Leenock will make his way in towards the gold line, wrap around towards the farms. A lot of idle eco now coming the way of Crackety in a situation where Leenock still has the military lead. It's not where you want to find yourself. And behind this, let's keep in mind, because you went men-at-arms and they're slow, there's options available to Leenock. He could easily go into crossbows, but interestingly enough, instead, he goes into the imams. A cool idea, actually. I'm actually a big fan of what he just done here. So we watched earlier as Crackety went imams, but he went imams, which, you know, as I'm a big fan of it, all of a sudden he dies in a clumsy way. He went imams when they were arranged in the comp. Notice that Leenock didn't invest those points until the ranged units were gone. Once they're gone, you can easily do this, and you can just stand behind the melee mosh pit and AoE heal out. Because remember, the Ottomans get this cool, unique tech they can get access to that allows them to get imams that can heal in AoE. So far, actually, it looks like he might not have even taken it. Maganel? Oh, Leenock. This is the second time this has happened. Oh, nice investment. That's going to come in clutch, actually. He just bought the Janissaries. Now, the Janissaries, remember, they get bonus damage up against cavalry. And, of course, these men-at-arms are not cavalry. But what they are is slow and lethargic. So they can't do anything against this. That was a really cool recovery point. And another highlight of how absurd the Ottomans can be. The fact that they can just spawn these type of units out of thin air in a clutch moment at 20 minutes in the game can completely recover it. I mean, even if that was 1 or 2 Knights diving, even better, right? Because remember, these Janissaries get bonus damage against Cav. But even against slow-moving men-at-arms, you just saw how effective the damage was. I mean, half your damage is still going through these men-at-arms, even with the armor-clad. Now the 4 Siege Workshops are going to come up from Lee. This is something I've noticed out of Ottoman players. They do tend to just kind of move up and set up a proxy base. It's a pretty effective approach for this Civ. You can just drop 1 blacksmith between it all and get amazing production rates out of just a few buildings. And usually, because of those cheap, or rather free units that you're producing, you have mass advantage. And you can just see how far ahead he is right now. 13 military to 35. Bit of a struggle to kind of see Crackety's way back in now. He needs a keep drop to kind of block this issue, but once again, something we highlighted at the start of this game is that this is not a good map to be defending on. And even if you get a keep drop at the front of your base, well, Leenock can just walk around it. Right? He can just go lowlands on that sucker. He doesn't have to go through it if he can just go around. There we go. Siege Workshop's now complete. Treb's also being prepped. Spring's at least going to find some value in killing off a few of Leenock's villages, but won't get too many for it. These Trebs are actually going to get a lot of value because of the way the farms have been set up by Crackety. Now, they're only 37 wood each, but they're going to get popped instantly by each Treb shot. And each one gone is 1 farm less that Crackety's able to occupy for food income. Food income that he desperately needs when he's this far behind still. And we are seeing the counter now come out to the men-at-arms. Crossbows are being prepped. Men-at-arm front line is also being committed to still by Leenock. I still don't see the keep. Crackety is very slow on gathering the stone. Instead, he's just trying to escalate his military production lines, but this is the issue now. He needs a keep for the network of citadels buff, but if he goes to one with 2 trebuchets already in the field, it's going to die. So the only way you get a keep up is if you build it behind. And that's why Crackety isn't gathering stone at an alarming rate anymore, is because if he drops a keep back here, you can't justify the 800 stone as a defensive investment. It's just for an aura. And don't get me wrong, that aura is damn good. Incredible, in fact. When you're in this kind of even stalemate in the late game, it's an impactful difference, but you're nowhere near that. This is not a stalemate. This is a heavily Leenock-favored situation. Did they change the Maganel attack animation? I swear the rocks never used to look like giant piles of dung falling from the sky. Let me just notice that. I think they do look different, yeah. Treb's just starting to strip away that attack speed aura. Crackety definitely has to fight soon. Has got double mango power, which is going to be effective against the crossbow Janissary mass if he can reach it. Leenock will have to be careful about that. Treb's firing away at the farms right now. Sipahi wrapping around, which means that Crackety needs to retreat. He's a little bit exposed here. In fact, the Sipahi will take out all the siege. Crackety's best hope now is to get one mango shot out before they die, but he can't even get that. It's going to be a complete rout. What a move out of Leenock. No hesitation there. You see the power of this Sipahi just so damn fast. That attack speed increase as well ensures that not even a single attack can come out in time. And just with that one foul strike, Leenock now has full momentum on his side. And this is where the pushback's going to continue. Behind this, the mango's rolling up for Leenock, which means that Crackety can't even rely on Lombos. Crossbows and Janissary making short work at the front line of the English. And now a keep drop on the way to keep Crackety in his base indefinitely. Crackety from here, this is where it'll begin to snowball. He'll try to stabilize, but if you look, you can see the way he's built his farms out. A lot of them are on the front line here, so not exactly safe gatherings. Leenock will just try to make the space now for the keep. Needs to make sure his front line is a little bit ahead of this. Just one mango now holding him hostage. You can see he's trying to prep another Springald, and there it is. We talked about the fact that this keep drop was going to be forced in the end, but he's building this in front of Leenock's very eyes with double trebuchet, and he realizes that is not going to work. He calls GG instantly without hesitation. Great read by Leenock. Great hold. Crackety tried for the all-in Lombo spam, got counted out by the Sipahi, and from there on out, it's always looked like he was up against the ropes in this one. Great plays actually coming out from Lee. Like that double trebuchet after dropping the siege workshops on the front line was a key detail here. Still leveraged the Sipahi really well. I love the fact that he started to snipe out these walls. These walls were the only thing keeping Crackety in this game, because if he can create a funnel point, then the Sipahi can't do anything, and he can maybe win siege. Especially when you consider Leenock inefficiently traded out a few of his siege weapons. If you recall the Mangonels early on, two of them just going down more or less for nothing. But outside of those two losses, like the way that he dictated siege in these battles was superior to Crackety. You know, that flank around attack show you how vile the Sipahi can be if you make one slip up, and they're so fast to exploit it as well with the same movement speed as Horsemen. Just great plays by Leenock. Crackety showing us exactly why the English is going to be, I think, a tough pick on Gorge. You either end the game fast enough with longbow spam that your opponent is just kind of done and dusted, or you have no way of hiding. You have nothing to retreat behind. You saw how difficult it was for him to wall the entire map, and you know this was against a static comp. You know there are other civs that can still punish you for this. Imagine a French player building 20 knights and going on the flanks. You still don't have an answer. So Gorge is a really messy map. I think Gorge by design seems to be intended to just enable whoever's ahead more. Like it's a true snowball effect. It kind of reminds me of a Dry Arabia on cocaine, if you will. In the Dry Arabia was always seen as this kind of like be the aggressor, don't be the defender type map. But when you see a map like Gorge in comparison to Dry Arabia, you realize just how easy it is to defend on Dry Arabia in comparison.